Hey guys, this is Diesel, Imagine Your Goddess, and I am doing a deck profile of my version of Knights of the Round Table. As you know, there's not that many Knights of the Round Tables, so builds converge. Please don't get down my throat. I did the best I could to make it as original as I could for me. I play Faria, of course. Faria's ability on the front is pay 2 white to flipper or pay 2 white to gain 200 life. Depending on how the game is going, I will either leave her completely on this side, wait a little while and then flip her, or flip her as soon as possible. It all depends on what you're playing against, but the fact that she can be that versatile is really, really cool. On her backside, she has target attack. She's an 8/8. When she enters, she gives you a stone. I think that's really cool because you get to call on the same turn that you flip her, so I mean, that's bonus. And if you can give her imperishable and she dies and then you bring her back, you can actually sort of, you don't really ramp, but you don't lose for J activating, so that's bonus. And then her God Art is 2 white and 4. Recover all resonators that you control, so you can only use that once per game, but you're going to be using that as a finishing move because you attack with 3 or 4 guys, you stand them and you attack with them again. And with the way this deck is built, all bonuses come off of attacks, so it's really nice. Stone-wise, I run 1 regular Firestone. I run 5 regular Light Stones. And I run 4 copies of Magic Stone of Heat Ray, which is red and white tapstone. This balance works okay for me. Sometimes I feel like I'm not hitting red the way I'd like to, but not enough to change the ratios, because you really need double white in this deck. You do need double red for Lancelot, but you really need double white. So I play it that way. Alright. Moving into Resonators, I run 4 copies of Percival. Percival is 1 cost, 2/2, Knight of the Round Table. When it enters, look at the top 5 cards of your deck, search for either a Knight of the Round Table or a Regalia from amongst those cards, and put the rest on the bottom of your deck of any order. I love filter cards, so this is a great card to get you moving through things. Also, you can banish him to prevent all damage done to target J-Ruler or target Knight of the Round Table until end of turn. That's huge, because it gives you the ability to protect yourself from Thunder and from Joan if your opponent's playing Jeanne d'Arc. The fact that none of these guys are human is really good, because it makes it so that you don't have to worry about human destroyers, purifying fire and whatnot. Gawain I run 4 of. He is a 2 cost 3/7, which is just amazing as is. He also gives all other Knights of the Round Table you control +2/+2. And if he attacks or blocks, you rest targeted Resonator. Now that rest effect is mandatory, but it can target anything. So if your opponent has no Resonators, you have to rest one of your own. But you could just rest him when he's already rested. It's not that big a deal. He is really good at giving you the necessary power you need to just pop over your opponent. I also run 4 copies of Lancelot, the Knight of the Mad Demon. For those of you who can tell, yes, those are 3 Mordreds in the background. Let me have my dream. I only have 4 Lancelots, and 3 of them are indisposed. But I do run 4 copies of Lancelot. 2 cost, 6/6, swiftness. When he attacks, if his power is above 1,000, deal 700 to target Resonator, and pay a red to give him +1/+0 until end of turn. So, all in all, just really good, solid card. You have 2 Gawains out, he's already there. If you put an addition on him, he's there. If you play Hector Damaris, he's there. But remember, his effect is also mandatory. You have to deal 700 damage to target Resonator. So if he's the only creature on the board and you only end up raising his front number, you might end up accidentally killing him, so you have to be careful about how you play things. I run 4 copies of Hector de Maze. Hector de Maris is a 4/4, 1 and a red, that costs a red less if you have Lancelot in play. And when this enters the field, target Resonator gains +4/+0 until end of turn. You can target it with its own ability. You could target Lancelot to get him over 1,000. You could target one of your other Knights of the Round Table just to give yourself a boost. Just a very good card. I run 4 copies of Tristan, the Knight of Sorrow. Tristan has swiftness as long as you control another Knight of the Round Table. Every creature in here, or every Resonator in here, is a Knight of the Round Table. I know what you're thinking about Scheherazade. I'll talk about that later. And whenever he attacks, Resonators you control get +1/+0 until end of turn. That includes himself. So when you attack with him, you go, he's at 7, and then your 2s are at 3s. A lot of times you'll swing with him with a Gawain on the board, so you're already doing 900. It's a really good way to wrap up a game super fast. And then the last Resonator I play is 3 copies of Galahad, the Son of the God. He's a 1 and a white, 4/4. When he attacks, you gain 500 life, and when he is put from the graveyard from the field, rest target Resonator your opponent controls. This card, I was running in 4s. I only recently switched it down to 3. I really like this card, and I know a lot of people don't, because if you don't have a Gawain on board, he is thunderable, but that's kind of the point. He draws a target on himself so that your opponent wastes resources on things that they think are within their realm to kill, and then when you get the big stuff on board, they no longer have those resources to spend. And if you do manage to get them on board and get either an addition on them or get a Gawain on board, you're gaining 500 every time you attack with them, and that's just pluses all day. So I like him. I think he's useful. I play him. That's it for my Resonators. For my non-Resonators, I start with 4 copies of Excalibur and 4 copies of Leviathan. Okay, let me talk about Excalibur first. Excalibur gives your J-Ruler target attack. That is redundant on my J-Ruler, but everything else makes it worthwhile. You can tap it to give your J-Ruler +2/+2, and if your J-Ruler is Faria, which mine is, she gains Imperishable, and her God art costs 2 less to play. So you can really do some damage there. You can banish that card to give her give your J-Ruler Imperishable until end of turn, and you can discard a copy of Excalibur when you have one of these in play to give yourself a white. Produce a white will. So this deck kind of relies on the fact that you get to do will really fast. So being able to have an Excalibur in hand, drop an Excalibur on, say, turn 3, and get to play a Lancelot and a second Gawain at the same time is pretty huge. And with Percival, you can usually make your hands work the way you want them to work. The Leviathan does a lot of similar things. It gives your J-Ruler swiftness, so if you're going for the quick run, you can flip Faria and attack with her on the same turn. You can tap it to give your J-Rule an additional 200 damage when it deals damage. And if your guy is Melgus, which mine is not, it gives him Imperishable and lowers the cost of the God's Art. That part doesn't matter to me. Discard a copy of Leviathan when one of these are in play to produce a red will. That's useful for playing Lancelot or any of my Resonators that have colorless costs. And I can also banish this card to give my J-Ruler Imperishable. So I have 12 ways to make my ruler imperishable. That's pretty decent. And it's always useful. Then I run 2 copies of Longinus. This is pretty much where my deck differs from other versions of Knights of the Round Table. I like Longinus. I like having main board Black Hate. I love having I love having a +5 addition in board. I like being able to in main pump Lancelot or pump Gawain or pump Galahad up to a point where my opponent's like, oh, this is a threat by itself. I have to deal with it. I run 3 copies of Justice of Godsword. It is a 1 light trigger standby champ. And it goes off when a resonator attacks or blocks. A resonator my opponent controls attacks or blocks. It either does 500 to them, or if I control J-Ruler, it deals my J-Ruler's attack to them. So I can use that in conjunction with Excalibur to do 1,000 damage to a resonator. It's pretty useful. I like this card because it helps you get through the small stuff that your opponent plays in order to do more damage to them in the long run. Eventually, I might run 4 of this and 3 of the next card that I am about to play, but I do like at least 3 of these in the main. And then my final card for the deck is I run 4 copies of Duet of Light. Duet of Light costs 1, and as an additional cost, you have to rest 2 light resonators you control. So it's kind of pricey, but it does remove target resonator from the game. It is one of the few cards Light has that is non-specific when it tries to remove cards from game. You can, of course, remove Fairy Tales from game with a different card. You can remove Darkness cards from game. You can remove Cthulhu's from game. But this is the only one that is in current standard that lets you remove anything for a decent cost. And since you're playing Percivals and Gawains, you're playing a lot of low-cost stuff, it's not a big deal that you have to rest 2 light resonators. Your deck is full of them. A lot of people ask why I wouldn't run Thunder in the place of this. Main reason is that you need to run something that gets rid of Scheherazade main board, and this is it in my deck. This gets rid of Scheherazade anytime my opponent plays him. So that's how you keep from getting stuck with not being able to attack. In my sideboard, I don't have my sideboard here unfortunately, but in my sideboard I do run some Thunders. I run some Crime and Punishment. I run a couple of Ragnaroks, and a couple of the cards that I run in here to change the ratios. But in general, I don't find myself sideboarding very often because the point of this deck is to kind of have the game in tow by turn 3 or 4. And if you're not, you're at least at a substantial lead so that you can finish out the game. The only decks that really seem to stand a super good chance against this deck are either decks that outrush it. Baja Blast has a decent matchup against us. Or decks that have a lot of creature removal. And those decks tend to be black, so the fact that I'm mainboarding a couple Longinus helps out a lot. That's pretty much it for this build. I really like it. I really like the way that it plays. Getting to do things every time you attack is nice. But you have to think. You can't play this deck playing in the turn you're in. You have to think a couple turns ahead. And you got to make sure that you're Percivaling right and stacking your deck the way that you need to stack it. It takes a lot of doing, but it's very rewarding to play. So I hope you guys like it. I hope you guys enjoyed the deck profile, and I hope that you guys give this deck a chance. It's fun. I'm really excited to see what Seven Kings is going to bring out to either help or augment this deck in a different way. But in the meantime, this is Diesel, and I will talk to you guys soon. I'm out.